Grace and peace. This is Brother Medina for Tuesday, Seventh-day Adventist. And what we want to talk about is very serious. You see that the world is filled with plenty intrigue. All sorts of corruptions are being legalized and justified by the left, by the New World Order, by those that are a part of the New World Order conspiracy, by those that are bringing in globalism. They have defiled the land with what they call same-sex marriages. In many countries of the world, we now have sodomite carnivals. They call it gay pride, but there's nothing proud about it. They call it progressive, but instead of being progressive, it is regressive, because things like that happened before in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, and God destroyed a whole region comprising of 5 different cities, Sodom and Gomorrah being the chief leading cities. He destroyed a whole region in which hundreds of thousands of people died by brimstone and fire. And he's going to do it again. He is going to send brimstone and fire upon these so-called gay pride marches in cities of the world, bringing them to ruins and destruction. You who are going to watch as if you are looking at some kind of carnival, you are in danger of losing your life also. Do not go to these festivals, because destruction is coming. They have taken the rainbow sign, which is a sign that God will not destroy the world by flood again, but at this time the world will be destroyed by fire, and they have appropriated this rainbow sign to their evil, to their corruption, to their sodomite corruption, which in the eyes of God is terrible blasphemy. And they think that they will escape, that nobody will do them anything, because they have the power of legislation, the power of courts, the power of the United Nations, the power of the European Union, and the power of a whole host of governments behind them. They feel that because the media has been removing criticisms and identifications of the wrong of sodomy, that they have power and they will continue to strive. They do not understand that God is going to send retribution upon them, and He will. Ere long, great balls of fire will be falling from the heavens, brimstone and fire, and lay cities to ruin, lay houses to ruin, destroy these people marching on the streets, exposing their corruption. They have destroyed the youth. They have even given us the impression that men could wear women clothes. They are actually removing on passports and ID cards the difference between male and female. They are actually not allowing parents in a large way to identify their child as male or female. They have men wearing women fashions, and they feel that is a good thing. All these sicknesses, which has been identified as wrong in science, they are now exalting as a good thing, as they are pushing the world towards immorality and destruction. You say, why, Brother Medina, this has been happening? It is because the New World Order believes that once you have Christian morality, the New World Order will be resisted. So they want to destroy Christian morality wherever it is in the world. So they have implemented a number of plans, a whole range of plans to destroy Christian morality. Some of them is to get people into sexual corruption. And that's the reason why, even at a young age of 3 and 4, they are starting to teach children that it is okay to have sex in certain parts of your body, which the Bible tells us is sodomy. They are actually teaching children this corruption now. They are propagating it for little children, reputable organizations. Nobody is calling it child abuse. You have little boys dress up as women with lipstick and so on, and whining and dancing in the street as women, and nobody calls that child abuse. These children are sexually exploited by people who claim that they are following their sexual preference and their gender, whatever it is, under gender fluidity, when in fact it is just a cover for pedophilia and a whole host of other things. Even pedophilia now is seeking to be regularized in different countries as the earth gets older and older. They have pushed all these things to demoralize the world. And as a result of that, they figure that they would be able to control a demoralized population, because they have the idea that if you have big guns and big force, it is easy to control people who are confused and who are demoralized. That's what they believe. And so because they will have the great weapons of the New World Order, they figure they will be able to control all such people. And this is the reason why they are doing it. It means your New World Order will be full of violence and death and murder. Your globalism will be very destructive. They are also seeking to remove the freedom of expression that people have on the internet, through various information organizations on the internet, and using various excuses to justify these things. However, while they are doing these things, we know that the end is coming, and soon they will see in the sky huge pieces of rocks falling upon the face of the earth, destroying those people. Great balls of fire, the stars falling from heaven upon them, that they will be destroyed for their immorality and their corruption. And in this film, we want to show you this in a small example. We made another film, a part 1. Now this is a part 2 of that same type of film. And we want to show you Sodom and Gomorrah Revisited again. And we want to show you the kind of destruction that took place in Sodom and Gomorrah by showing you the ruins that exist today. They have been found, and they have been found with brimstone, which can still be burned today. This clearly shows us that God is going to do this again. So we are showing you this again in this film. We are only asking you to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, to accept the character of Christ before it is too late. The character of Christ, which is the truths of the plan of salvation, once it becomes your ideal value, your ideological value, determines how you live and causes you to keep the commandments of God. And this, my dear people, is imputed to you in justification, where God gives you the character of Christ. And within the character of Christ is the nature of God, His love, the righteousness of God, so that God Himself can dwell in you, motivating you and making you will, or making you willing to do of His good pleasure. Yes, my dear people, this is why we are calling upon you to accept Yahweh, to accept the great I Am, to accept Yahweh, to accept God, who will change you and make you different. Yes, my dear people, you need to have the doctrine of Christ that you may have God. And whatever religious organization it is, if they do not have the doctrine of Christ, they do not have God. And it must be the real doctrine of Christ, the truths of the plan of salvation, not a counterfeit plan, the real plan of salvation. The plan that teaches you that when God justifies you, He makes you sin-free, and when He sanctifies you, He maintains His sin-freeness, and He will blot out all your past sins in the judgment, in the second apartment of the heavenly sanctuary. Then the plagues will fall, and then Jesus will be seen coming in power and great glory upon the face of this earth. Things are about to happen, and you need to prepare. We are living in terrible times, but times that should put fear into you. May God bless you as you make your right decisions before it is too late. In Jesus' holy name, amen. Yahweh Gadol, long live the Reformation. We are looking here at the fact that Sodom and Gomorrah is how the world has become through the pushing of same-sex marriage and all sorts of corrupted genders. And just as how God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and brimstone, so he will destroy this world. Great balls of fire will fall from heaven and burn up plenty people, destroy them as they're having their gay parades. This is a fact, because God hates this, because this attacks God more than anyone else. And it also thoroughly destroys the human personality, that they cannot be reached easily with the gospel. So what you are seeing here merely depicts this fact that God is against all these things, and his wrath will fall from heaven in brimstone and fire to stop the evil that is going on all over the world. That's why we are calling upon you to repent of your sins and accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. We are asking you people, you Sodomites also, to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. Let Jesus Christ change you. Let Jesus Christ make you different. Let Jesus Christ get you out of those immoralities, false genders, corrupted sexual practices, and place his love and holiness in you and bring you into obedience to his holy commandments. This is what we are asking for. And this can happen if you would give God a chance. Don't depreciate yourself. Don't be fooled by those governments that are supporting wrong. Those governments are supporting those wrongs because they're being led by evil angels. And if they support those wrongs, you will be destroyed too. Because the Bible also tells us that the powers of this world are ruled by the devil. This is the reason why they are encouraging same-sex marriages or legalized sodomy according to them, and confusions of gender, which they call multitudes of genders. This is the reason why they're doing this. And you would not allow yourself to be caught up by government corruptions, immorality. So you got to get out and accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. You got to get out because the end is near. And this film merely symbolizes the destruction that is to come upon the face of this earth through all these horrible practices going on all over the world. So this is why we call upon you to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. Yes, my dear people.
Under the guise of tolerance, they're promoting the sexualization of children. And we're going to premiere the footage, and then we're going to post it. It's not posted yet at Infowars.com. And then what it is a bunch of little kids being rolled up in front of a bunch of men dressed like women, scantily clad, and being taught this is cool, this is fun, this is neat. You think it's creepy when you see these fashion shows and little girls and little boys dressed up in adult clothing? I guess they think it's politically correct. It's okay to have young children next to men with huge cod pieces. Just scroll down and show them. Basically naked, just with glitter on the man's genitals. Little girls, little boys, men humping the ground, twerking, children simulating it with women in hijabs, just all trying to be counterculture. It can't get any weirder. Total sexualization of children. We're talking about women and men bringing their children to a drag queen festival that looks like a gay parade, which have your parades all day, but everybody's pointed out it's something you don't bring your children to. So that's the next level, ladies and gentlemen. That's the next level. And it is a total agenda all over the country and all over the Western world. And it's weirder than hell because they will also at these events have Muslim Democratic Party leader women wearing hijabs, who then have family members that are known jihadists that write books about not letting women go out without a man, don't let women drive cars, and cut women's genitals off and throw gay people off buildings. So under the guise of tolerance, they're promoting the sexualization of children. Okay, videotape. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, we're streaming live on the internet. Yeah, we've got Facebook showing it all. And little kids giving tips, giving money to the drag queens that dance for them. In fact, I should open the show up. Ladies and gentlemen, we have video of fat men pole dancing and little kids, little girls and little boys giving them dollars. Imagine you go to the local park and there's a guy on the monkey bars in a woman's dress wearing a G-string with his package with glitter on it, leaning over, and then your children are giving them dollars. You would call the police. You would go insane. No one would believe you. It would be so weird. No one would believe you. It would be so weird. The overall larger agenda. Sparkle shine at story time. St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And then what it is a bunch of little kids being rolled up in front of a bunch of men dressed like women, scantily clad, and being taught this is cool, this is fun, this is neat. That's just a newspaper article you brought in to show me. This is happening in every major city every week, that children are being bombarded. And then people say, oh, you're just being mean. You're just attacking them because they're cross-dressers. No, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care about that. I don't care if they were heterosexuals, cross-dressers, whatever they are. They shouldn't be in there bombarding in an organized program saying the drag queen goes swish, 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 but you're all going to be drag queens when you grow up. Now, you don't have a scientist or a firefighter or a police officer come and say you're going to be that. No, no, no. We're going to teach you how to be a drag queen. I mean, it's on the audio from the AP piece. And the media always plays dumb and says, because they don't want the alarm bell raised, that we're making this up and just attacking drag queens. I mean, I will say these are hideously ugly men. If they're going to be drag queens, my God, could they just get some that don't look like hell? I mean, I'm allowed to aesthetically say these are really obese people. But again, it's the force feeding of it onto our children. The largest paper in London, the Metro, that millions of people read every week, has published a child sex manual with graphic cartoon images of children masturbating and having orgasms, including fluids, and has encouraged parents to give them sex toys and sexualize them. It's been up since the 31st. They have pulled the article minutes after we began talking about it, showing why the globalists in Congress admit they want us shut down, because we were able to expose their operations that they want to just put out and normalize. We're able to expose them up front and cause a debate. They don't want that. They want normalization with no debate, to put you into a Stockholm Syndrome program where you're just basically, through peer pressure, conditioned to accept all of this. And it shows the mentality of the pedophile and pervert and coalitions we're up against. And every time I cover this, they have the so-called liberal gay publications come out and say that I hate gay people. I talked about all these thousands of new sexual preferences and hundreds that Facebook's recognizing. How could anyone ever know all the names? It's total confusion. And there's TV shows I see where people are having sex with their cars, and it's a growing phenomenon where they have sex with appliances, are in love with inanimate objects, and in love with these robot sex dolls they're buying. They'll take it, edit it down to 10 seconds, and then say, Alex Jones says gay men want to rape your car's tailpipe. I'm not the one, like Jocelyn Elders, the former head of the Surgeon General operation, saying, reach down and help the kindergartners play with themselves. That's sexualization of children. Stay away from our children's genitals, Jocelyn Elders. In fact, oh, they found the clip. We'll play it come up in a moment. Reach down and help them. Remember that controversy from 1994? But here's today. Little transgender shop sells fake genitals for little girls. UK NHS patient asked for female nurse to give cervical smear, gets tattooed trans man with stubble. I don't think Breitbart's headline makes sense. It's man with tattoos and stubble. Muscular man comes in and demands the nurse give him a cervical smear. He didn't have a female genitals. He had male genitals, and now they're saying she's bad. I mean, if someone comes in and says they're Puff the Magic Dragon, and then they want you to pull a thorn out of their paw. I'm Leo the Lion, or I'm Leo the Dragon. Pull the thorn out of my paw. And you're like, you're not a lion. Yes, do it. You're mentally ill. No, you have been turned into a mental patient. The UK is now an open-air mental institution, and the Tavistock Institute, run by MI6, admits they launched the whole gender confusion thing. I don't hate you if you think you're a man or woman. And I know there are some men that like men or whatever. That's not the issue. The issue is this is being pushed on kids. And if a man comes into a nurse and pulls his pants down and says, I want a pap smear, brother, you don't have a cervix. But in California, you get arrested for saying brother. That's right. They have a law that if someone identifies as a woman or a man and you call them by the wrong name, you get arrested. Well, then arrest us, you cult of authoritarians. You are out of control. But it's all done by a top psychologist and psychiatrist. One time I had dinner with a former psychiatrist that worked for the State Department. He told me about the Tavistock Institute. This is about 20 years ago with Ted Anderson. First time I visited Minnesota, he wanted me to meet the station owner. And I went and met the guy. He was a very intelligent, very smart guy, and I looked him up. He was famous. And he just said, Alex, just start researching what they're doing to the kids. He goes, I can't tell you, but he started cussing. He just goes, it's the most horrible thing. They're going to end the families, confuse everything. They're teaching them to blah, blah, blah. And I kind of knew about it, but I didn't really know. This is a guy that worked with the Tavistock Institute. There's no way he's alive now. He was really old. And then Ted Anderson said, hey, the station owner wants to talk to you. And if you'll meet with him, he'll put you on a station. And I went and met with him. He put us on late at night or whatever the point was. Is that Ted was there. I ought to have Ted on to tell the story. I forget that guy's name. But he was sitting there telling me all this, and I'm going, uh-huh. And I remember thinking, you know, this is a little extreme for me. This is like 19 years ago. So here it goes. UK NHS patient asked for female nurse for cervical smear. It's tattooed trans man with stubble. Look at this one. NHS clinic where children are preparing for sex changes, the Daily Mail. They're putting young children on drugs. And look, Tavistock Institute. I tweeted about Tavistock. People said, oh, yeah, what's this made-up group you claim's behind it? And people started looking. They're like, oh, my God, they admit the whole plan in the 60s to do this. And they've done it. And here's the coup de grace. Columnist says parents should buy their kids sex toys. Looks like someone have moved beyond debates about sex education in public schools, which is really about sexualization, and instead advocating something new, such as buying children sex toys. Ellen Scott, the lifestyle editor for the United Kingdom's metro.co.uk, wrote in an op-ed Saturday that parents should consider purchasing masturbation tools for their children. In fact, she argues it's a parent's responsibility to make sure your children's entirely normal exploration of their sexuality is safe, healthy, enjoyable, and in their own hands. Yeah, you got to get them sexualized right now, and you've got to get involved because we want you to get ready to have other people involved with your children. That's what it's all about. And then it shows images of children playing with themselves. And I don't even though this is in a major newspaper that's given out for free, and I don't think we should even show all of this, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? I mean, this is sick. It shows little girls' panties that are, I can't even say it on air. Good God. And it shows children being sexualized. This is for pervs to look at. This is 100% pedophilia porn masquerading in public. Newspaper publishes pedophilia porn in the UK. The article's been taken down. They just pulled it. Snopes will hit us and say it isn't real. Wow, well, we got screenshots of it all. Sorry. We couldn't find our page, but it's working on it. And you know what pedophiles do? They always go, I got a puppy, I got a toy bear, get my ice cream truck. See, it's okay, cute, because it's a polar bear 404 era. Oh, we're little cuties. We're nice. We got candy. On the scene, just satanic rituals, just total. Kill the child.
she's the devious diva you could ever think of. I've been wearing like my sister's tutus since I was like 3s and 4s, even like 2s, and I've been dancing around in like little pink dresses and stuff. So yeah, I think I've had lactation inside of me since I was born, and that's why I love that song, Born This Way.
We just want our kids to express themselves however they see fit, as long as it's respectful and they're nice people. We really don't care.
I like dancing, and I like performing, and I love, not only like, I love dressing up. It makes me feel very happy, like I am accepted. The yellow wig with the red dress, and then the blonde wig with this dress.
When he was about 2, he came to me with Mr. Potato Head earrings and asked me to put makeup on him. So we did a little like drag photo shoot, and he duck faced. It was very sweet. And yeah, anytime he wanted makeup, I just put some on him.
A little bit of dark and a little bit of swoon, and then a little bit of power couple. I want natural contour.
You want realness?
Yeah.
You want drag realness?
Yes. I also want stuff coming off of my eyes.
When he was about 7, we started watching RuPaul's Drag Race. I think when he saw that that was an actual art form and they could be whatever they wanted, I think he decided that that's when drag was going to be like his life.
I love them because they do what they want to do, and they're not afraid to do it. My friends at school think Lactatia is very courageous. She's really good at dancing. They also think that she's really good at playing video games and stuff like that. You know, with the pew 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 pew.
He used to be called Peaches Demure. That was the original drag name. It's only been a few months since like the name Lactatia has been around. His sister picked it for him.
Lactatia is a diva all time.
I am a diva and you are not a diva. I am the real diva up in here.
A diva can be a drag queen, a diva can just be a woman, a diva can be a man, but I wouldn't really call a man a diva. I would call a man a divler. I know people would like go up to their parents and tell them that they want to be a drag queen, and then their parents would be like, you shouldn't even know what that is. I don't think that should be a thing. I don't think that other people should judge what people do.
So overwhelming. Like you feel overwhelmed with like pride that your child is, you know, expressing themselves and showing the world, and it's being so well received, and you know, she's pretty good at what she does.
If you're shy because of people that don't want you to do something, then you have to just man up and be like, okay, I'm not listening to you. I can do what I want, and this is what I want to do.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hello.
My advice to you is keep going. Learn your lyrics well. Give them face, give them choreography, give them a lot of energy. They will always remember your energy. Left foot forward. There you go. And chest up, head up. When you give them your face, just do it like it's a rainbow sweep, as in you're gonna take in all of this wonderfulness. There you go. Diva in the making. I love it. It's because of people like you that I'm here. You are my replacement. And you're gonna be wonderful at this. You're gonna have lots of fun with it. And it's gonna take you to a lot of wonderful places.
I take voguing classes.
Oh, you take voguing classes? By the time you turn 12, you are going to be a weapon of mass devastation.
A lot of people ask me if I'm gonna be a drag queen forever, and it's always the same answer. Probably. I hope I'm still gonna be a drag queen. If I'm not, that's totally fine. But I really hope that I can keep my lactation side of me for the rest of my life.
The latest Hollywood hero for the liberal progressives is Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son, who is now gender fluid. He is not a boy, he's not a girl, he's sometimes both. I'm racially fluid, like Rachel Dolezal, so I'm speaking to you now as a black man. Sometimes I'm white, but I'm racially fluid, which is part of the liberal logic. Remember Rachel Dolezal, the white woman who says that she's black and says she's not deceiving anybody, and MSNBC and a whole list of others actually think that she should be considered to be black because that's how she identifies, just like gender now. So Will Smith's son, you're not allowed to say that this is weird or this is just odd or there's any kind of mental illness involved in this. This is only allowed to be celebrated in our culture today. Huffington Compost reports that Will Smith has the best response to his son's gender fluid style. He is fearless. That's fantastic. There he is in People magazine, going to prom dressed as a girl. I'm sorry, not even allowed to say that he's dressed as a girl, because to say that girls wear certain kinds of clothing like dresses is sexist. So here is this person wearing a dress now. Yes. Again, this is as normal now to the liberals. It must be, if we're going to follow their logic, as this 52-year-old man with gender identity disorder, who is now, and age identity disorder. He's decided, this 52-year-old father is going to start living as a 6-year-old girl. He has gender identity disorder as well. And you can't say that that's weird, liberals. So you must now invite this 52-year-old, this 6-year-old girl to play with your children now. Because, well, that's totally normal in your worldview and in the liberal logic. So, yeah, Will Smith celebrating his fearless son as we see this just bizarre blurring and spreading of this transgender, gender fluidness. Now, it's not even trans, it's just choose your own gender, you know? So, we have California now, which allows mandates now that people who just feel like they're a boy or a girl can just use whatever bathroom that they want to. And a woman at Planet Fitness last year was disturbed by a man, a manly-looking creature, in the woman's bathroom, locker room, and she complained, and then she had her membership revoked because she was being bigoted towards the transgender people. Yeah. So big burly 6-foot-something men, 200-pound guys who identify as they're women now are legally allowed to use the women's bathroom in California. Oh, that doesn't put women at risk at all, does it? Other strange news along the similar lines. I mean, we're just seeing people, celebrities naming their children, women, they're naming girls boys' names and boys girls' names, like Ryan Reynolds naming his baby daughter James. Not Jamie, it's James. So, Will Smith apparently was resisting his son's gender fluidness. Told him that he can't wear a skirt. Oh, no. So, is Will Smith an transgender, cisgender, gender fluid bigot? Look at the look on his face. What do you have wrong with transgender, cisgender people? You may recall that last year, Facebook changed their gender identity, so it's not only just you can be a man or you can be a woman, you can be 50 different things.
I let the boys wear dresses and play with dolls, because if they were girls and they wanted to wear trousers and play with cars, no one would blink an eye.
Five-year-old twin boys, Caleb and Kai, love their princess dresses and painting their nails as much as they like toy swords and guns. And their parents are more than happy to let them dress how they want and play with whatever toys they choose.
Mummy did it. They're cool, aren't they? Mummy put Elsa makeup on me yesterday.
If they can dress up as pirates and Darth Vader and zombies, why can't they dress as princesses? It'd be a bit hypocritical of me if I let them dress up as somebody who marauders over the seven seas, murdering and stealing things, but I can't let them dress as a princess. It doesn't make sense to me.
We put a lot of emphasis on encouraging creativity and our children's imaginations. We are quite strict sometimes, but within that they have a lot of freedom to make their own decisions about certain things. That's really important for children because they don't get a lot of choices in what they do.
We let them choose what they want to do to a degree. As long as it's safe, then we're pretty relaxed about it.
Although the practice of gender-neutral parenting is growing in popularity, it's not something that Joe and Gabriella consciously followed.
Before the boys were born, I had no idea what gender-neutral parenting was. I'd never heard of it before, so I don't suppose I intended to use it.
That was just something that we had done from day one without realising it. We live in a community where it's quite normal for children to have toys that are stereotypically for girls and girls to play with toys that are stereotypically for boys. That's never been an issue for us.
If I was to have kids, I'd choose this type of parenting. It's letting them have their own choice, becoming their own person as they grow.
However, it seems that not everyone is so open-minded.
They don't like wearing dresses out, just because they've done it before, and when they've got to, say, a shop or something, they've got embarrassed about doing it outside of the house.
We went to IKEA and we got there and they did get quite self-conscious once they walked through the door, but I think it's more to do with other people, other children, than it is to do about how they feel about it themselves.
And I suppose that's just the impact that society has on them. Even at this early age at school, children do get comments about, oh, that's a girl's toy, or oh, you get dressed like a girl or a boy. But I don't think you should put labels on children that are that young.
In their own space, they are perfectly comfortable with it and it doesn't faze them.
They express themselves how they express themselves.
Like any parents, Joe and Gabriella just want what's best for their boys.
We encourage them to question things. We encourage them to think for themselves. I don't feel like we put limits on them in terms of their self-belief. They will have a lot of opportunities where they can do exactly what they want to do and have no limits on their imagination in that sense. If somebody came to me and suggested that my parenting skills were possibly going to make my sons gay, after I'd stop laughing, I'd point out that sexuality is to do with genetics and not to do with environment.
My hopes for them in the future is that they're happy. I really don't care what they do or who they are, as long as they're good people and they're happy. That's all I want for them.
Pink. He loves pink. And like his favourite dress is the black one with pink flamingos on it.
You could be forgiven for mistaking this toddler for a little girl, but 2-year-old Max Price is actually a boy. Max's parents are raising him gender neutral, meaning they dress him in both boys' and girls' clothes.
He might be just playing dress up, it might be something he might still do in years to come, but at the end of the day we're just following the way he wants to be. We listen to him very carefully.
Parents Lisa, 23, and Martin, 34, adopted the unorthodox technique in the hope that Max will grow up having a better understanding of women.
Gender neutral parenting is giving a child the freedom to choose between, stereotypically male or female clothes and toys without judging them, basically. He likes what he likes. He doesn't conform to one or the other, really. If we allow Max to play with dolls and dresses and stuff like that, he'll become whoever he is without society telling him that he has to be a certain way.
At home in Walsall, West Midlands, Max plays with cars and dolls, and he is encouraged to wear trousers and dresses.
If he wanted to wear a dress, let him wear a dress. If he likes pink, he likes pink. If he likes blue, he likes blue. It's down to him.
Lisa and Martin's parenting techniques may not be for everyone, but they're hoping it will give Max a good grounding in life.
I'm hoping to instill such a sense of confidence and a sense of who he is. Hopefully he'll be able to have his dad's wit and be able to be so confident that it doesn't bother him.
When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, "Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters, who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city." Lot, his wife and daughters, all fled from the terrible destruction of Sodom. Likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Wicked men were punished by the Lord in a divine judgment of fire. The intense heat consumed the wicked cities and their inhabitants. But Lot's wife looked back toward her beloved Sodom, violating the angel's command, and was thus turned into a pillar of salt. Turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destruction, making them an example of those who afterward would live ungodly. This is a visible example that is mentioned here. The Bible tells us the cities were in the plain of Jordan, which is the area surrounding the Dead Sea, and it was once a beautiful, lush area. At 1,300 feet below sea level, this is the lowest place on earth, a very hot and desolate region that was cursed by God because of the sins of the people. Sodom had pride, fullness of food, and abundance of idleness. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. And they were haughty and committed abominations before me. Flavius Josephus, the 1st century Jewish historian, tells us, "There are still the remainders of that divine fire, and the traces of the 5 cities are still to be seen." Popular thought has it that the cities were later covered by the waters of the Dead Sea, but if Josephus could see the cities in his day, then we should be able to view them also, as the water level has, if anything, receded since his time. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as you go toward Gerar, as far as Gaza, then as you go toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, as far as Lasha. The biblical description tells us the cities were spread out, forming a line along the Canaanite border, not grouped together in one area, as some may think. Driving along the coastal highway of the Dead Sea in Israel, one can soon see peculiar formations that are of a lighter color than the surrounding terrain. These are the ashen cities, destroyed by the wrath of God. These cities were consumed by intense flames, a supernatural heat that was directed by the hand of God. Today there is ash that is of lighter color than the surrounding mountains and terrain. As mentioned in the Bible, this is a desolate area where nothing grows. Inspecting the formations closely, one can see structures containing man-made elements, such as 90-degree angles. Even though the buildings were consumed by the fire, the remaining ash in these cities is comprised of a heavier material due to the inclusion of brimstone or sulfur, and still retains some of the original shapes of man-made structures. This stunning structure stands out as a singular formation with 4 sides, surrounded by a deep moat. We move in closer to inspect the unusual features evident on the side of the formation. On the side of the structure, this swirling pattern is different from any type of sedimentary rock or soil that would normally contain horizontal, even layers. These swirling designs were also seen in other ashen formations in the cities. This is evidence of extreme heat, up to 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit, where thermal ionization occurs, when the electrons repel and attract, forming these unusual swirling designs. In Lot's day, this area was a swirling cauldron of death and destruction, rained down from the Lord in heaven. Strange anomalies can be seen here, such as these fragile layers of material which disintegrate when touched. The limestone buildings in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were totally transformed into ash by the consuming fire of the Lord. Evidence of this destruction is revealed in the white gypsum anomalies in the area, including unusual shapes of chalk-like material, which is not found in other parts of the country. Even layers of white and gray material can also be seen, comprising gypsum and ash. When God unleashes a consuming fire, it will turn stone into ashes. At the perimeter of this city, one can see this amazing Sphinx still standing today. It was a pagan symbol positioned at the edge of town and was thought to protect the inhabitants from harm. The Sphinx stands alone as a singular structure with a defined shape. This particular Sphinx has an obvious demarcation between its base and the soil below it, another sign of a man-made structure placed on top of the soil. Later, we will see another Sphinx. From a higher level, a large section of gypsum has fallen down here. It clearly exhibits the alternating layers of white ash that is calcium sulfate, gray ash that is calcium carbonate. One can also find loose or powdery ash that is quite thick and has been deposited next to the formations. The ash is made up of calcium carbonate and calcium sulfate, which come from the limestone buildings and the brimstone mixing together during the fire. In the formations themselves, some material can be gently raked off the surface with the slightest touch. Looking down the city streets, one can notice man-made shapes which are not found in nature. Here we see a building with square sides or 90-degree angles. From the opposite side, we can see the same symmetrical structure and man-made angles. We can see the remains of walls that extended outward at 90-degree angles from the main structure. Once again, further evidence of man-made construction. Here we can see square windows that are visible in the walls of the structures, which give us a view of the past. Scanning the city for signs of prior habitation, we can see in the foreground a tower of cylindrical design, positioned at the edge of the city. The remains have suffered greatly during 3,500 years of wind and rain erosion. Even still, there is the appearance here of streets and man-made structures. Here in the foreground, we have a conical shape, resting on a raised area. A short distance away, we see another similar shape. As we pan across the city, we can see in the distance an arched doorway that exhibits a symmetrical shape, even to this day. The whole land is brimstone, salt and burning. It is not sown, nor does it bear, nor does any grass grow there, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and his wrath. More anomalies are found in the cities. In this case, we have a large hardened clump of material that we broke open, revealing layers of previously heated material, including gypsum crystals, created by the combination of limestone and sulfur. From the intense heat, various objects were melted in the cities. Here we have some material that was boiling on top, while the remainder of the substance pooled at the bottom, creating a solid base. A very unusual find here, but just another strange anomaly, not found in other areas of the country. Here is another example of some type of substance that was melted from the extreme heat that God rained down from above. Resting on the ground, we find an unusual layer of gypsum crystals. Underneath the crystals is a layer of white gypsum, then gray ash, all of which was created by the great conflagration of heat, which consumed these sinful cities along the Dead Sea. Once again, we find more gypsum, this time in a circular formation of crystals, all radiating outward. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, from the Lord out of the heavens. Brimstone. Our first sample was found here, having been washed down from a higher location. This is the heavenly marker left behind, which proves the sites to be the real Sodom and Gomorrah. Ron Wyatt was the original discoverer of these cities in 1989, and he now describes the brimstone found here.
Okay, we're down at Sodom and Gomorrah still. Right in front of you see some unusual looking spots on this. Shows a layer of ash. It's not stone, it's ash. Now we'll move in for a close-up of this. And you can see that they're kind of circular shaped places. Now what we have found, and we'll move in a little closer here, is that inside each of these is sulfur. That is in most of them. Now, the ones that do not have sulfur in them, and this one we just took a bunch of sulfur out and put it in our specimen bag. But the ones that don't have sulfur have a very black center where they have where it's been very hot. So now we'll move in on this one where there is some sulfur still present, and back off just enough so you can see what we're up to here, and we'll go collect that sample in a bag.
Started using this knife, it was very, very sharp. Okay, here this is, and we have collected some more, and it smells and tastes like sulfur.
Now the Bible tells us that it rained fire and brimstone upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now what you see in front of you here is the results of large and small, well, varying sized chunks of sulfur, burning sulfur that have hit. And what we find here is that God rained this burning sulfur down upon the city, and rain is a perfect description of it. It landed just in the pattern that rain would fall, and the stuff, of course, the accumulative heat of all of this upon the city set the entire thing ablaze. The flashpoint of every material there, metal, stone, of course the people, and everything burned, and this sulfur continued to burn, and it vitrified the material around it after it had burned it all up, sealed itself off from the oxygen, and then of course smothered itself out. And in each of these little crystalline capsules here is a varying size chunk of sulfur. And there are millions of these in these ashes that we have here. Now some of them we have cracked open so you can see the sulfur inside, and others we have left intact. But there are millions of these here. So this shows that God indeed rained fire and brimstone upon these cities. And if you look in your dictionary, under brimstone, you'll find that it is sulfur.
A piece of the brimstone from the cities was lit at night, and soon there was a beautiful blue flame produced by the burning sulfur. A very strong aroma of sulfur filled the air, and was overpowering if one directly breathed the fumes. Exploring the cities further, more brimstone was found of various shapes and sizes. Several samples had been washed down to areas below and were added to our growing collection. This brimstone is made of monoclinic, white sulfur that has been burned or cooked at a high temperature. It is quite different from natural sulfur that is formed in geothermal areas. Samples were taken to a lab for analysis. Each specimen was carefully separated and prepared for testing, with the outer portion cast aside. Next, the samples were dried and placed in a rock crusher. Then they were pressed onto a disc. Then they were loaded into a machine for the semi-quantitative X-ray analysis. Each sample was individually transported into the testing chamber for analysis. The results proved to be quite amazing. As the samples were found to be 98% pure sulfur, unlike any other sulfur found on Earth. This pure, cooked sulfur is the heavenly marker that was left behind to show the world that the Lord, without a doubt, destroyed these sinful cities at His command. Critics have said that the sulfur is from volcanic activity, but that type of rhombic sulfur is only 40% sulfur and is of a crystalline form, unlike the white, compacted monoclinic form that is found in the Ashen cities today. Here is a round piece of brimstone embedded in a section of ash. Another clump of ash contains a piece of brimstone that has a burn ring surrounding the unburned sulfur inside. This mound of material has a lid that easily comes off, revealing the round nugget of brimstone inside. As we gaze across the southern end of the Dead Sea, we can view the El Lisan Peninsula in Jordan. Apparently, the city of Gomorrah extended over to this peninsula in the days of Lot. One can find the same white formations in this area. Ashen formations are seen, including walls extending out at 90-degree angles. We can also see clumps of gypsum scattered on the ground, like this one here. Brimstone is also found in this area. Incredibly, a Byzantine-era church was constructed here, as noted on this sign, built here because the area was known for its biblical significance. Back over at Gomorrah proper, we can see white, ashen worship structures built atop an acropolis or high place. Both a sphinx and ziggurat are seen here, side by side, much like what we see in Egypt at Giza, with the Sphinx and the pyramids built in close proximity to each other. While inspecting Gomorrah, other visitors arrived to view the unusual formations. The Sphinx is made of a white material, whiter than the ash surrounding it. perhaps it was built of more expensive components and dedicated to their pagan gods. The Sphinx represented a god of protection, but even it was consumed in the flames. It is approximately 30 feet long and is quite impressive, both in its shape and size. Resting near it is the ziggurat, symmetrical in shape and also comprised of a special white material. Here we can see a ziggurat standing next to a symmetrical tower. Next, we can see an arched door between two pillars, and once again, another arched door. As we scan across the city, our eye notices a raised white formation in the distance. As we near the formation, we can see it is in the shape of a ziggurat. It turns out there are actually two ziggurats on this raised acropolis. As we stood next to one of the ziggurats, our team found perfect specimens of melted brimstone, where the liquid from the burning sulfur had cooled down, forming a hard, crystalline shell around the unburned sulfur that was hidden inside. On the outside of the ziggurat, we spotted a piece of brimstone fused into the side of the formation. Using a knife, it was opened, revealing the pure brimstone inside. Resting on a ledge of the ziggurat, we see another sample of brimstone that was opened with a knife, once again revealing the pure sulfur inside. The most impressive evidence was this cremated bone fragment that was left behind from some lost soul of Gomorrah. The bone marrow inside was cooked until it had turned white. This is a moving testimony of God's power to destroy those who reject the Holy Spirit. Are we in the will of God, allowing the Holy Spirit to guide us into obedience? Or are we part of the rebellious and lost? There is a future event mentioned in Revelation, but the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
Dyson Kilo Davis is 5 years old, just like any other little boy, except that Dyson likes to wear dresses. Beach dresses, wedding dresses, disco dresses, cheerleader outfits, and especially princess dresses.
They make me feel happy and I like them what they are.
Dyson started wearing dresses when he was barely 2 years old.
We had our first public display at daycare. Dyson ran up to me, smile as big as you can believe, in a red dress with pink heels. And I froze. I was looking around to see what the other parents were saying and how they were kind of looking at me.
Cheryl took Dyson to see a psychologist who assured her he was healthy and engaging in perfectly normal behavior. But Cheryl tried to steer him towards other clothes, other interests. But he always seemed to come back to dresses. After school one day,
he got home and said, "Look at Mommy, I'm a pretty princess." And I looked at him very, very seriously. And I said, "Boys are not princesses, girls are." And he looked me right back, very, very strong, and said, "I am a princess boy."
Things came to a head at Halloween. Cheryl had taken Dyson and his brother Jacoby to the store to find costumes.
My older son, Jacoby, went for the action figure aisle, and he found a Ninja Turtle outfit and was good, very happy. Dyson saw this blue Cinderella dress and he just begged, can you please get me a dress, Mom? And at that moment, Jacoby's tugging on my shoulder and he says, Mom!
And she said, what? And then I said, why can't you just let him be happy?
And that was my turning moment.
It's very pretty.
Cheryl began to embrace Dyson's love of dresses, wearing them and
It's your dress, Mama.
making them.
It goes like this.
Up on the shoulder?
Yeah, and it goes like this, sticking under here.
Oh, it's off the shoulder.
She wrote a book about their family called My Princess Boy.
My Princess Boy is 4 years old. He likes pretty things.
The book was a hit. Its message about acceptance as much as gender.
If you see a princess boy, will you laugh at him? Will you call him a name? Will you play with him? Will you like him for who he is?
And suddenly, Cheryl has become an accidental activist.
Thank you for challenging what the male image is supposed to be.
Headlining an event she never imagined she'd attend, much less speak at, like Gender Odyssey, a conference on transgender issues.
Nice to meet you.
The book has been a hit with parents like Rick Phillips, a gay father.
The evening we read the book, all he could say through the whole conversation was, "Daddies, that's me."
For all the lessons she's learned about gender, Cheryl says one of the toughest is how much value adults ascribe to it.
He had on his butterfly backpack, and when we went to a gymnastics class, and there was a father there who made a comment saying I would never let my child wear anything like that. Right at that moment, his son went up to Dyson and said, "I love your backpack, I like butterflies." And his father grabbed him, and they walked off.
It fits me.
How we dress, how we act, it's part of what experts call gender expression.
You know, we're sitting here, we're wearing pants, we're women, it's okay. But for men, we're much more strict about it. Like, people tend to get worked up if a man shows up in a gold lame skirt, which is one of the reasons why we get much more worked up about boys who are acting like girls. That's why we have a national crisis when a little boy is pictured with painted toenails.
Toenails? Yes, toenails. When J. Crew put out a catalog this spring showing its president, Jenna Lyons, painting her son's toenails pink, it created a firestorm. Psychiatrist and Fox News contributor Keith Abloh called it psychological sterilization and sent a message to Lyons saying, "It may be fun and games now, Jenna, but at least put some money aside for psychotherapy later." Everybody had an opinion.
Is gay. He's raising his child to be gay, I think. Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I mean, why stereotype it?
Pink toenails? I love them. on a little boy, though, I'm not so sure.
My sister painted my toenails once and I turned out all right.
The issues around gender in this country get really nutted up about it, you know. Why? We are very uncomfortable when we are unable to categorize.
Cheryl Killa Davis sees that too.
They want to say, oh, he must be gay. They want to say, oh, he must be transgender. And what I'm saying is, I think at the very basic level, we're saying, accept us for who we are. Throughout life, if he is gay, if he's transgendered, whatever it is, we will accept him and love him for who he is, and we want the world to do the same.
Cheryl has also started what she calls acceptance groups, playgroups for princess boys, and all sorts of other kids where they can feel special for being different.
Don't have that type.
7-year-old Annika, a friend of Dyson's, was one of the first members.
Some people say, you know, he wears dresses, and I say, yeah. And they say, don't you not want to be his friend? And they say, no. And they say, why are you his friend? Because he's my friend. I think that's cool.
And Dyson? Well, Dyson seems to be perfectly happy just being a princess boy.
Förra somras så kom det liksom jättemånga barn och liksom bara sa till mig, är du kille eller tjej, är du kille eller tjej? Så jag hörde liksom ingenting. Sen så svarade jag att jag var båda.
Sweden is the most forward-thinking country in the world when it comes to questioning gender. The gender-neutral pronoun hen is now commonly used by most Swedes, and government-funded gender-neutral kindergartens often spark controversy in the foreign press. With recent victories for the trans rights movement and more young people defining something other than male and female than ever before, I'm curious to find out what it's like to grow up without the gender binary.
So I've just arrived in Örebro in Sweden. I'm about to go meet a family who are attempting to bring up their kids free from all gender norms. Hello, Amelia, nice to meet you. How are you?
This is Nico.
Hello.
This is Margareta. This is Mika. Margareta is my partner's mother.
And where's your partner?
At work.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody's got to bring home the veggie bacon. So this is our humble abode.
I love the artwork.
Yeah, this is Mika and Nico's artwork.
Mama, is that your partner?
Yeah, my partner goes by Matilda and Matt, but is also the one who gave birth.
Okay.
And I'm Mapa. That's just what felt right to me, because I'm intersex. I was born with characteristics of both male and female, even though my body didn't develop along more masculine lines until puberty. And so yeah, my partner is not trans, strictly trans, but we share the same values, that gendering is harmful.
Del is an American photographer who moved to Sweden for love. Their work has, for over 3 decades, focused on queer identities and challenging gender norms.
Let me show you around the house.
Yes, please.
You can see the kids' bedroom. This is Nico's room.
And how old is Nico?
Nico's 2.5.
And Mika is?
Almost 5.5.
Mika and Nico were both assigned male at birth, but in this family, the sex you were born with does not dictate your gender identity.
We don't gender toys, we don't gender colors, so whatever they're interested in.
It's like they can just play with whatever toys they want, and you would never dictate what those toys were.
No, absolutely not. So they both have a lot of cars, and they both have dolls.
And what about with clothing?
Right now, Mika is, for the past 2 months, has worn a dress every day, just about. When Mika's wearing dresses, and because Mika has very, very long hair, most people assume that Mika's female.
If someone called Mika female in front of Mika, would you correct them or intervene?
No, we've never corrected anybody. In fact, if people call Mika she, we might go with that too. We use he to them. Sometimes it's mixed, and it depends, because in Sweden we have hen, the gender-neutral pronoun in Swedish. I think Mika has always said when I've asked if they're she or him.
Confused about what pronoun to use, I decide to call Mika and Nico by their names.
Did you hurt yourself, my love?
I got a boo-boo.
Did you get a boo-boo? Did I kiss it? Blow on it? Okay. Is that better now? Yeah, I think so.
How do you avoid gendering your children?
We didn't choose anything but gender-neutral names. We chose not to know what sex they would be assigned when they were born. Not answering the question, is it a boy or a girl? To avoid the B word and the G word. Changing pronouns in books. Instead of it always being mama, we say mama and mapa. What's the matter, sweetie? Asked Mapa. It's so dark. Don't be afraid, says Mapa. I'll call the lanternfish. Sleep tight, little rainbow fish. This is good. I got it 50% off. So, yes. Are you going to share?
Thank you.
With Amelia? That's
delicious. I want to know how Grandma Margareta feels about how her grandchildren are being raised.
Margareta and Del, do you think that you have similar or different parenting methods?
We had our problems in the beginning. There was different. I let my son go to kindergarten in a dress and with a hair like this, but that was only one time. I think if he would like to have done that every day, it would have been a problem.
I can understand that there may be some things that are new and harder to understand.
What do you think those things are, like, specifically?
Well, specifically to do things like gender. I mean, the reason I like Margareta so much is because she thinks I'm a great mama.
Yeah,
right?
very nice.
Yeah.
Nico, what's your spoon for?
Mama, look. Instead of eating apples made a gigantic mess.
When I first arrived, it didn't feel that strange that the kids were wearing dresses and stuff, because kids are kids and like kids like to play dress up. And they are smart, funny, joyous kids to be around.
The next morning, I helped Del get Mika and Nico ready for kindergarten.
Ready? There we go. Do we need to rinse it out?
No, we don't.
Don't do rinse.
Kids, no.
Oh my god, that's how much I know about parenting, Del.
You want to wear this one or this one? You want this one? Okay, we're gonna go with the red and black theme today then. Good idea. Today, är du hon, han eller hen idag? That's not something I always have to say, but it would be good to know today for the film. Ska jag säga hon eller hen? Just Mika, okay? Let's go.
Mika seems like neither a boy nor a girl, just non-binary. And when you ask Mika about Mika's gender, Mika just doesn't really want to talk about it.
At home, the kids can be as gender creative as they please, but now it's time for kindergarten.
Nico, hug and kiss.
I wonder what the other children make of Mika's gender expression.
Hey, how would you describe Mika? What is hen? What do you want to be when you grow up? A builder? What do you want to build? A house?
I am gonna have children living in my house.
What kind of children are you going to have?
I don't care how they look.
That's nice. I don't care how my children look like either. Hey.
The Swedish government school plan forbids enforcing gender stereotypes and has done since 1998.
Förskolan ska motverka traditionella könsmönster och könsroller. Flickor och pojkar ska i förskolan ha samma möjligheter att pröva och utveckla förmågor och intressen utan begränsningar utifrån stereotypa könsroller. Så där står det klart och tydligt att vi måste arbeta för att motverka stereotypa könsroller.
What are some of the ways in which you avoid gender norms when you're teaching?
Tankesättet, hur man pratar med barnen, pratar med varandra. Att man inte säger flickor och pojkar utan kompisar.
Då väljer vi väljer ju projekt som inte är alltså, kopplat till kön. Med mycket naturmaterial. Ja, men vi odlar. Ja, men bygger mycket. Vi har djur, inga dockor.
And what does this say?
Det här är supermjuka hjältar. Ja, men superhjältar, de kan vara som vanliga människor. Spiderman måste också gå på toaletten. Med lilla bebisen.
So these pictures are basically breaking down the boundaries of different stereotypes. This is like a soft father figure we're seeing.
Precis. Och tvärtom då?
Sleeping Beauty says no.
Ja.
Lesbian mums.
When it comes to gender creative teaching, the most influential person in Sweden is Lotta Ryelin, who started the country's first gender-neutral kindergarten.
So welcome into Egalia.
Thank you. How would you describe Egalia?
It's all about democracy. For all children to have the right to be what they are, what they feel like they are, regardless of gender, class, sexuality. It's about anti-discrimination.
Do these dolls have a gender?
No, not what we can tell the children. But the children, they play, they never ask. It's not important for the children.
Here's the office, and I'm going to show you what we call the whole life spectra.
Okay.
We tend to divide this life spectra into two pieces, one for boys and one for girls. More often, pink is for girls and blue is for boys. When we call a boy cool and strong. And to girls, we more often say that they should be helpful, nice, cute, and we have different expectations. We take away this border, and we don't separate it in boyish and girlish. We give the whole life spectra to everyone. So we are not limiting, we are just adding. We are not changing the children, we are changing our own thoughts.
While a more gender-neutral focus in kindergartens is fully adopted by the Swedish government, even in liberal Sweden, there's no shortage of critics. Dr. Eberhard has written books on raising kids, and a recent article he wrote heavily criticised attitudes to gender in Swedish kindergartens.
Why do you disagree with the Swedish government's recommendation that schools do not reinforce gender norms?
I think it's damaging because it tells us that behaviors that are typical for boys, typical for girls, is problematic. It's a brainwashing strategy that you are eradicating sex differences, which I do oppose. The major problem in Sweden, I would say, is that our boys fail in school, not the girls. Our boys are committing suicide, not the girls. So the problem today in Sweden is with the boys. If you have this law that you should treat boys like hens, it implies that you should not behave like the boy you were born to be. It should not be the government who tells our kids how they should react. It should be up to them. And I would like our kids to be kids.
That's what the gender-neutral kindergarten said too.
So in that sense, we do agree, but the means of making this happen, we disagree.
In your mind, what would be a better way of doing things?
You cannot solve a problem by doing totally the opposite way. I think then you create new problems.
I think I was expecting him to be a bit more hardline. In a weird way, he kind of seemed to agree with some of the values of the gender-neutral kindergarten, that it should be up to the individual, except he doesn't think we should erase boys and girls as categories.
Swedish kindergartens seem accommodating to rainbow families like Dell's. But I wonder if ordinary Swedish society is as open-minded. Dell takes Mika and Nico shopping. As soon as we enter, people start staring.
Do people normally stare?
Yeah, I'm so used to it. I sort of block it out, but sometimes I notice. And then sometimes I stare back at them. It's like, what the hell are you looking at? You think you look so good compared to me? I don't think so. Oh, what's beautiful. What is that? Maybe this is something for Mika. They're maybe a little big for you, but I don't know. Wow, check this out. Go ask Mama what she thinks. When I go swimming with the kids, it's not easy for me. I go to the male changing rooms and my body without clothes does not really pass. Puberty, I started growing a beard. One breast developed, one did not. My genitals were a bit different. I still thought I was female, but I plucked my beard in secret for years and years, and I did have shame. So I think every time I go out looking gender non-conforming, you could say, I think that does something. It's like a way of being micro-activist.
They bump into a family they know.
Hey, Corey. Hey, Magnus. Hey. Good to see you. Corey is actually the only other kid we know in Örebro who was assigned male at birth, who also has long hair and wears dresses.
I would say nearly 99% of all people that we meet say that he is a girl.
Do you let Corey choose their clothes and how they have their hair?
We let him choose in the way that is practical for us.
Now he has started to say that he's a girl. And the other day he's a boy and sometimes he's a cat. It's good for him. It's a part of his childhood. He can be whatever he wants or dress however he wants for that short time because society will have its toll on him anyway.
Cora has been invited to play later, but first, Mika has an appointment at the hairdresser's.
Hi. How are you going to have your hair cut?
This much really.
Hon har mycket slitet hår här.
Jag vet, men vi måste Tabor. You excited?
I'll never forget my most pivotal haircut when I was about Mika's age. A bowl cut like this. Do you like that haircut on me?
Why didn't you have long hair too?
Why didn't I? Because the hairdresser just cut it all off. Would you like to have hair that short? No. Why not?
Hold still. Vet du vad menar intersex? När man har både manlig och kvinnlig characteristics.
Här i Sverige man ser alltså det finns. Men i Syrien det var kanske lite hemligt. Här kanske det är lite mer frihet. Lite mer demokratiskt alltså.
What do you think, Mika?
The hairdresser had called Mika she, so I asked Elle how to address Mika today.
So you know there was a question, that question you don't like so much. They wanted to know if they should call you hon, han, eller hen. Han? Hen. You want them to call you hen?
Yes.
Like me? Okay.
Hey, Mika, why don't you like it when people ask hen, hun, han, hen? When you ask Mika about gender, Mika doesn't always seem to want to talk about it. Why do you think that is?
I don't want Mika to be forced to choose hon, han, or hen. I mean, I think you heard that Mika will say hen because I say hen. I think Mika does and probably will model themselves more on me. I try not to put my obsessions onto Mika, but I do believe that Mika has the ability to choose. You know, if Mika decides to be a dude, then great, that's fine.
But a lot of people would say you're deliberately bringing up your child to not fit in with the norm, and that could be dangerous for them. What would you say to that?
I would say you're absolutely right. People raise their children to be just like them, so we're doing nothing different. We're absolutely ordinary in that way. Let me just say, they are both assigned male at birth, they're both white, they're both able-bodied, they're intelligent, they've got a full knapsack of privileges. So if they have to deal with a little bit of discomfort because they have a mapa or because their gender expression doesn't match what other people think it should be, gender confusion is a small price to pay for social progress.
Is certainly an oddity that we find these European leaders have in common. This was a story originally from DC Whispers, or at least that's where I first saw it. What do Germany's Angela Merkel, France's Emmanuel Macron, Italy's Paolo Gentiloni, Great Britain's Theresa May, Holland's Mark Rutte, Sweden's Stefan Löfven, Scotland's Nicola Sturgeon, and the European Commission's Jean-Claude Juncker have in common? No, folks, it's not that they're all the leaders of nations in Europe who want open borders and are now suffering from dramatic, radical Islamic extremism. No, they do have that in common, but that's not what I'm talking about. None of them, 0 of them, have kids or grandkids. How about that? What are the odds of that? And what does that tell you about the psychology of these people, good or bad, that they don't have kids? And what does that tell you about their world view? I think it says quite a lot, but I'll leave that judgment up to you. But again, all these great and powerful leaders in Europe, no family, no kids, no grandkids, no future lineage. No wonder why they don't care about your future lineage. Now, this is actually a culture problem that is now coming to America, and that culture is anti-family. And one of the things they're doing that's anti-family is trying to poison the minds of our youth. Now, this is an incredible story that really just kind of makes your eyes pop and wonder what the heck is going on. 8-year-old boy Ethan learns to become an LGBT drag queen makeup artist. Now, this is a young boy. You look into this, and really, folks, what the sad truth of this is that this boy's mother does not care about anything except herself. And we'll see that as I play some of these videos. But you would first ask yourself, what parent in their right mind would ever do this to their child? Let's go ahead and roll this video. And you know what, guys? When we were rolling this video, everybody else back there was sickened by this too. So if you guys want to comment while we roll this videos, you guys back in the control room, have your mics open too. Look at this sick, disgusting trash that they're forcing this kid to do. This is an 8-year-old boy at a drag queen show. Lactatia. His mother named him Lactatia. How about that? And then this drag queen is cursing with this kid on stage. What kind of parent takes their kid to this type of show and then puts them on stage like some kind of a prop? A sick parent, that's what. And it's all fun and games to this drag queen. Yeah, this is all fun and games. We're here poisoning the youth, propping up this youth that wants to be a tranny. That's sick. They will take your kids from you. CPS will take your kids from you if they find an old marijuana roach on your coffee table. This parent's out here parading their kid around like some sort of tranny, putting her in drag queen shows. Nothing from CPS. Nothing. Makes me sick. Look at these people filming this kid. I mean, this poor kid literally gets put up on the stage. So now what's going on in this kid's mind? This kid thinks it's cool. This kid thinks it's popular. This kid thinks, wow, I can get a lot of attention. Look at this, I'm fun, I'm hip. It's cool. This is rewarding. It's all fake. And then other kids are gonna see this and be like, wow, I'm lost. I don't have any friends. I don't have people cheering for me. I wanna be like Lactatia. I wanna put on a wig. I wanna do makeup. Mommy, why won't you let me put makeup on and dance around in a wig? Look, Lactatia can do it. They're gonna parade this girl around. This is gonna be the next thing they're gonna try to poison the youth with. My mom's in the front row supporting this sickening behavior. Can you imagine a parent being around? Remember that old infomercial, Girls Gone Wild? We're here with Girl Gone Wild. Woo! I want to thank my mother who's supporting me. Woo! Thank you, Mom. Woo! Woo! That's basically what you have here. Okay, so that's nice. Wow. Poor kid, man. Poor kid. Now, let's go to this other video. Again, this kid is just being propped up. Of course, all the people in this community, oh, we love this kid. Look at how fun this kid is. Woo! They don't care that they're literally destroying this kid's mind, destroying this kid's hopes at a normal future. Here's more, and you'll see the parent that's the problem in this video.
I think that anyone can do what they want in life. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you want to be a drag queen and your parents don't let you,
they're gonna put this kid in front of kids. Oh yeah, it's the parents' fault. That's what Andrew Cuomo says. Or that's what the guy Cuomo on CNN says. Oh my gosh, if you don't like the fact that there's a tranny walking around in the bathroom with your little girl, there's something wrong with you.
Regardless, if that person, according to our laws, even at the age of, according to this Canadian law, if someone sleeps... Who cares about the Canadian law? Okay. Who cares about the Canadian law? Listen to me, Hashim.
He claimed to follow Christ.
Look, if you sleep around with a 9-year-old, you're called a pedophile according to our law.
How you gonna preach Christ?
Listen, Hashim, if you sleep with a 9-year-old in this country, you're called a pedophile.
Okay, but you know what? A 9-year-old is considered an adult. He's reaching puberty. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because a woman becomes an adult when she attains puberty. Whether she's 9 years old or 10 years old, automatically when she attains puberty, right? She's now an adult. Now, to take it back She was one, right? What happened was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha when she was like, I believe, like 6 or 7, right? But he consumed the marriage when she attained puberty. So when the Prophet Muhammad married Aisha, that marriage was more of a promise, right? So, but
that
when
started at
she
6 years old.
Yeah, it was a promise. That marriage
was it
was
consummated?
A promise. It was consummated
at 9 years old.
When she was, I'm not sure. There's difference of,
I know it's 9 years old.
There's difference of opinion. Some people say 11, some people say 9. But whatever the age is,
both children, 9 or 11, they're still child.
Whether it's 11 or 9 years old, right? At that time, she became an adult. She was an adult automatically because she attained puberty. So when she attained puberty, whether it was at 9 or 11, that's when the Prophet Muhammad
so Hashid, right? You're gonna slap someone because they differ from you. They think that's pedophilia. You don't think it's pedophilia, and you somehow thought it was right to slap a man in his face.
Yes.
Because he differs.
Yes.
So let me ask you something.
Because you know why he's slapping in his face now? He's not gonna go around and make that statement again. He'll never make that statement again. Because he knows that if he makes that statement again,
Hashim, you don't go around slapping people.
Oh, I'll do it again. If somebody's going to insult our prophet,
in the name
right,
of who?
Right? We'll slap.
Is this you doing it or is this Islam?
No, that's Islam.
To go around and slap people when they disagree with you? That's Islam?
Slapping is nothing.
Brother, that's nothing.
Gets killed.
No, wait a second. So you're telling me Islam gives you the license to go slap people because they disagree with you?
No. Slapping is nothing.
That's nothing.
No. In other countries,
so it's okay to slap people.
In other countries,
so you're telling me Islam says it's okay to slap people?
In other countries, anybody who insults the Prophet Muhammad, your opponent gets killed.
Okay, so it's okay. Slapping is not. So if I go around, I want to preach my religion, I say that Muhammad's a false prophet according to my faith, I deserve death?
Yes.
Yes. So obviously it's a big difference between Canada and that other country.
In the Bible.
So basically,
you are rejecting
so basically when you come along,
Muhammad, Islam is prophesied in the Bible.
So you're basically telling me that Islamic law tells me that if I preach something different from Islam, if I say that I don't believe in Muhammad as a true prophet, I believe he's a false prophet, you're telling me Islam says it's okay to kill that person.
Oh yeah. If you go to a Muslim country,
there we go.
They kill you.
So, okay, let me tell you something. The difference, wait, hold on. The difference with your version of Islam, hold on. The difference with your version of Islam and
not my version of Islam.
What version?
Right?
Is it the Islam?
It's the Islamic law. If you go around preaching that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a prophet in the Muslim country, you get killed.
Okay, so that's right?
Islamic
That's
law.
right?
That's Islamic law.
Right?
But he can't talk against it.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, let me finish what I was going to say.
You don't talk against us. You know why? Why would you talk against us?
Hold on. He's telling me. Hold on. Talk against who?
Our own country.
A belief or you as a person?
In our own country, you can't talk against us.
So you can't disagree with my belief?
No, you can't talk against us in our own country.
Against you or against your belief?
It's like coming to our own house and telling us to go out.
So it's okay for you to come to a parent Christian country and preach your religion?
No, this is not a Christian country.
It's not. So why do you make a distinction?
We have the right to practice our own religion.
Good.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something.
That's why he's talking.
So let me tell you something. First of all, let me say there's a difference between your version of Islam, which you say is
not my version.
Fine. Okay, let me finish what I'm saying.
This is
according to
you
the difference.
Go to a Muslim country and preach Christianity.
The difference. Okay.
She just wrote a piece in which she says, we're quoting now, transgender ideology has infiltrated my field and produced large-scale child abuse. Cortella says doctors are encouraging parents to have their kids change genders when there's no evidence these changes are safe or even helpful. Dr. Cortella joins us now. Doctor, thanks a lot for weighing in on this. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is this is a field, I'm not sure what it is, of social science or medicine that is changing so fast that it's hard to sort of know where we are exactly. And you're in the practice of providing medicine to kids, so I wanted to get your perspective on it. What are you seeing?
Thank you very much, Tucker. I'm glad to be here. I think it's important to say that everyone on both sides of this issue is concerned about finding loving and healthful solutions for all children.
That's right. Yeah.
Honestly, we at the American College of Pediatricians, and also I have many colleagues on the left, also insist that those solutions be rooted in reality, and transgender ideology is not. Sex is hardwired from before birth, and it cannot change. And that's why we've actually called this child abuse, because by feeding children and families these lies, children are having their normal psychological development interrupted. They're being put on the puberty blockers, which essentially castrates them chemically, followed by surgical mutilation later on. This is child abuse. It's not healthcare.
So, as you know, you will be, if you haven't already, be accused of committing child abuse yourself, and of being cruel and unloving and not caring for these kids, of imposing a medieval theology on modern children. How do you respond?
Right, but as you said at the beginning, this is about science. What is going on now with the puberty blockers, followed by cross-sex hormones, followed by surgeries, has absolutely no track record whatsoever. The loving solution for children who are ages 3 to 10, they engage in magical thinking. They don't know the difference so easily between fantasy and reality. We need to nurture them through adolescence, through natural puberty. Our job as parents and physicians is to help children embrace their healthy bodies. And when this is done, once they get past puberty into late adolescence, as many as 95% will come to embrace their bodies and identify with their biological sex.
So since this is not just something we're debating as college students, but there are physicians involved in prescribing drugs, what do we know about the effects of heavy-duty hormones, synthetic hormones given to little kids, like long-term?
Right. Well, we don't have long-term studies, which is a major problem, which is why physicians should not be telling parents that this is settled science and that it is safe. We do know that when puberty blockers are used appropriately in other settings, that we have observed in adults. For example, they can be used to treat prostate cancer and some gynecologic issues in women, that there's evidence that you can impact memory and cognitive ability in a negative way. And as far as the cross-sex hormones, if you have a young child on puberty blockers who goes directly to cross-sex or sex change hormones, they become sterile. You're sterilizing children. Little children cannot possibly understand the risk of having a medication and then never being able to have children in the future. So
I didn't know that. There's a lot I don't know about this. Again, this has all happened so fast. I don't think most people really know what's going on. But what's the youngest age at which kids are getting these kind of drugs?
The guidelines suggest that puberty blockers be given at ages 11 to 12, but I've had reports from colleagues across the country, and you can also find them in various news reports, that children as young as 9 have been put on these puberty blockers. And what it does, it arrests normal development. Puberty is not a disease.
Meet Red, a playful 1-year-old Pomeranian.
Well, we've been calling him Red just because of his obvious color.
Red was found wandering the streets a little over a month ago, but this isn't your average dog. He's a pseudo-hermaphrodite, born with partially formed male and female genitalia, a condition the San Bernardino City Animal Shelter at first thought was the result of an injury. The shelter was considering euthanasia until the president of the nonprofit, Helping Every Animal League, stepped in and paid for it out of her own pocket. An $1,100 gender reassignment surgery later, Red is now officially a male. And Patty Harris of San Bernardino has not only become his foster mom, she's his #1 fan.
Happy New Year. Wait, you're on the wrong side.
I'm on the wrong side. Okay.
I love you, baby. Yeah. Happy New Year.
Welcome to elementary school. We're in California.
Elementary school.
A
fair, accurate, inclusive, and respectful treatment of lesbian, gay, bi, and trans.
How many kids, just pause it, how many kids in elementary school think that they're gay? Now how many will? So now, LGBTQRSWYWTF109er is history is now mandatory in California, and you cannot opt your child out of it. Here's them breaking it down on Fox News.
Historians now wrestling with how to teach LGBT history to school children as California becomes the first state to use LGBT.
Excuse me, you left out like 74 different sexual variations, sir.
Story, William.
Racist Fox.
Hey, Rick, it's controversial because some publishers were not comfortable identifying people as gay. They did not out themselves, or the conclusion lacked evidence. And secondly,
Wait a second. Did you hear what he just said? Oh my gosh. These people, I don't even know how to deal with these people anymore. I don't know if there's any hope for them. They are so obsessed with their agenda. They are so obsessed with their identity politics that they're sitting here just looking at people like, well, maybe he was gay. So let's say he was gay and put him in the history class. Maybe she was gay. Well, yeah, okay, let's say she was gay. Now they are deciding what your sexual orientation is. All right, finish the clip.
Parents cannot opt out.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome to elementary school. We're in California.
Elementary school.
A fair, accurate, inclusive, and respectful treatment of lesbian, gay, bi, and trans.
How many kids, just pause it. How many kids in elementary school think that they're gay? Now how many will? Go back to the clip.
I think what's going on here is an effort to politicize history. We're not saying there's an agenda. We're not saying that these people are better than other people. All we're saying is this is another group of Americans, and they face certain prejudices.
The state required publishers like Mark Jarrett to include the sexual preferences of prominent historical figures, among others, activist Jane Addams, writers Emily Dickinson and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and
people are all dead.
Buchanan, though evidence is inconclusive.
Yeah.
We should say Buchanan, he never married. He had a very good friend.
Oh, that's it, then he's gay.
He may have been gay. On the other hand,
he may have been gay, so let's say he's gay.
Being gay was seen as something evil and wrong.
The state approved Jarrett's text for
how many of these people do you think are closet homosexuals?
Driver,
no, I'm dead serious.
As a woman,
that's probably what's driving this.
Baron von Steuben, who helped Washington at Valley Forge, may have been gay. Poet Walt Whitman was drawing young men in parks and dance halls, but denied his same-sex preferences in public.
Much of this is speculation.
Good Lord. Most of this is speculation, so let's make sure that this is mandatory in elementary school. I mean, folks, this is out of control. Yeah, maybe he was gay. Seriously, how do you cover this? How do you cover something so insane that there's not even a foundation, there's not even a basis? So, we're gonna be now in California forcing children in elementary school to take LGBTQWTF9er history.
A bunch of gay bullies and liberal lunatics are trying to get a nice Christian couple fired from HGTV, the Home and Garden channel, because, well, they go to church. The clickbait bottom-feeding waste of cyberspace website BuzzFeed started a witch hunt against the couple after they realized that they go to church and, surprise, surprise, the pastor doesn't support gay marriage. Come to think of it, the only churches whose leaders would support gay marriage would be churches of Satan. The couple hosts a show called Fixer Upper where, well, as you can probably guess, they fix up old houses and restore them. And it's in its 4th season, so it's a fairly popular show. Recently, a similar witch hunt against Christians got a show taken off of HGTV when the Benham brothers were revealed to be Christians who didn't support gay marriage. Something that both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama also didn't support back in 2008 when Obama was first elected. Something that half of Americans don't support either. HGTV, the Home and Garden channel, bowed to the pressure of the social justice warriors and canceled the Benham brothers show. Chip and Joanna Gaines haven't even spoken publicly about the issue, but that hasn't stopped the local lynch mob from trying to get them fired from HGTV as well. You may recall that the creator of the popular Firefox browser, Brandon Ike, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, was literally bullied out of his job by the gay mafia social justice warriors simply because he personally didn't support gay marriage. He founded Mozilla, the company that made Firefox, one of the most popular browsers that half of Americans use, and he was literally forced out of his company because he simply didn't support gay marriage. He didn't stand up during a board meeting and denounce gay marriage. He didn't send out an email denouncing any gay employees or any gay people that wanted to get married within the company. He simply spent $1,000 of his own money and donated it to a proposition in California which would have banned gay marriage.
CNN is now recommending that you allow other men to have sex with your wives because it'll help your marriage. I assure you this is a real story on CNN's website. This isn't a hoax or a satire. Cuckolding can be positive for some couples. Cuckolding, or cuck for short, is a man whose wife has cheated on him. And not only does this article say that that could be great for your relationship, but it actually says that you should watch your wife having sex with other men because that'll be good for your relationship too. The article starts off saying in our current political climate, the term cuck, short for cuckservative, I'm sorry, it's short for cuckold, as I just said, it has become an insult of the so-called alt-right, aimed at men they view as spineless and emasculated. The slur has its roots in the concept of cuckolding, or having an adulterous partner. So if you call someone a cuck, you're a racist, alt-right neo-Nazi. Oh, okay, thank you, Caesar. But according to a recent study, acting on cuckolding fantasies can be a largely positive experience for many couples and hardly a sign of weakness. Cuckolding has become fetishized into a powerful sexual fantasy for some men who get aroused by the idea of their romantic partner engaging in sexual activity with someone else. We're hearing more and more about it these days, and more people are rejecting the social stigma against this fantasy. It goes on to say that some loser who wrote a book about how great this could be for your relationship surveyed thousands of Americans and found that 58% of men and about a third of women had fantasized about cuckolding. I'm sorry, but surveys on sex don't count when you take them in communities infested with perverts like West Hollywood or San Francisco.
Yes, my dear people, the things you have been seeing in this film about the encroach of sodomy, the encroach of the whole band of alt-left communists that are the whole band of immoral people displaying their corruptions before the world. It is soon to end because meteorites are going to fall on them. God is going to destroy them like Sodom and Gomorrah. They will be dancing in the streets. They will be doing their corruption in the streets. And all of a sudden, fire and brimstone will fall upon them. The earth will open and swallow them in. We say this not because we hate them, but because we hate what they are doing. And if they would not follow Christ, but be defiant and rebellious and look to destroy the righteous, God is going to destroy them. And this is what we are showing you here in these films, that we are showing you of the wicked as they're doing their corruptions all over the world. Christ is coming soon, and we need to make sure we are prepared to live righteous through the faith of Jesus Christ, through the righteousness of God being in us through faith, that we may keep the commandments of God according to the Bible, that we might be saved. Yes, my dear people.
Sodom and Gomorrah. When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, "Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters, who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city." Lot, his wife and daughters, all fled from the terrible destruction of Sodom. Likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Wicked men were punished by the Lord in a divine judgment of fire. The intense heat consumed the wicked cities and their inhabitants. But Lot's wife looked back toward her beloved Sodom, violating the angel's command, and was thus turned into a pillar of salt. Turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destruction, making them an example of those who afterward would live ungodly. This is a visible example that is mentioned here. The Bible tells us the cities were in the plain of Jordan, which is the area surrounding the Dead Sea, and it was once a beautiful, lush area. At 1,300 feet below sea level, this is the lowest place on earth, a very hot and desolate region that was cursed by God because of the sins of the people. Flavius Josephus, the 1st century Jewish historian, tells us, "There are still the remainders of that divine fire, and the traces of the 5 cities are still to be seen." Popular thought has it that the cities were later covered by the waters of the Dead Sea, but if Josephus could see the cities in his day, then we should be able to view them also, as the water level has, if anything, receded since his time.
The Bible says that thousands of years ago, at this very place, there stood 2 cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. The inhabitants were rich and vain. They mistreated all visitors, took away from them everything that they wanted. They also loved each other, but a strange love it was. Man loved man, and woman loved woman. Among the residents there were some people who were especially praised. They used children, both boys and girls, as sex slaves. In modern times, such people would be called pedophiles. Once upon a time, 3 angels arrived at the home of Lot, who at that time lived in Sodom with his wife and daughters. As soon as the Sodomites found out, they circled his home and demanded that he surrender his guests to them for desecration. Lot answered, "Take me and my daughters, but don't touch my guests." The Sodomites didn't recede and surrounded the house. When it darkened, the angels ordered Lot to leave the city. As soon as Lot's family left the city boundaries, a sea of fire fell upon Sodom and Gomorrah from the sky. 2,000 years have passed, but this Phoenician demon sating his belly with human sacrifices is still devouring youth and children today. The world is cultivating sin, justifying it officially as LGBT. That's lesbians, homosexuals, bisexuals, and transgender. These communities reject the moral principle of the traditional family, and evil is now called a virtue and darkness light. Sin and debauchery are becoming a cult. Sin is being justified by aesthetics. The scariest thing that has happened with the European Christian civilization is the substitution of concepts. Homosexuals can now even become priests. An evangelical pastor, Niels Huchthausen, believes that homosexuality is normal. He's distorting the sense of the Holy Scripture.
Homosexual and lesbian couples are divinely blessed, having the same blessing as a man and a woman have in a marriage. Male and female priests have a right to do this. I myself have been living with my husband in an official marriage for many years.
The biblical example of Sodom and Gomorrah, the perishing of the two cities where perverts lived in the same way they're living today in Europe, doesn't seem to convince the priests.
Ja, Sodom und Gomorrah, wenn Sie sich die Geschichte angucken.
If you're looking at Sodom and Gomorrah, what's being talked about there isn't love either. The word love is actually absent. Love in the sense of responsible partnership. The story talked about rape and abuse. People were humiliated. But that's a different story which has no connection whatsoever to what we're talking about now.
It is written in the Bible that sodomy is sin. It's a mortal sin. Such man won't be accepted in the kingdom of heaven, says Paul the Apostle.
That's stupidity. I object. As I've already said, there are 3 places in the Bible. In the New Testament, there is one more, where Paul says that Jesus had never said those things. We haven't heard anything like that from Jesus, but he does say, love your neighbor as yourself. Paul does say somewhere that homosexuality isn't good, that it's a sin, but guided by the words of Jesus, I can object to Paul and say, Dear Paul, maybe you are wrong?
If he's denying the words of Paul the Apostle and has the impudence to misinterpret them, you have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Whatever you do, both God himself and Paul the Apostle have warned that such people would appear. Such people have always been around, but the church has resisted nevertheless. The truth is the truth. You can brainwash whoever you want, but they will always come to the truth eventually. In all denominations, all religions, this process is inevitable. Sodomites pay attention to mysticism and different symbols. So, a Bible was published by homosexuals, especially for themselves, with a rainbow cross. A Bible in which the Holy Scripture is modified. In the real Bible, for example, it says, Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is an abomination. In the gay Bible, Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind in the temple of Moloch. It is an abomination. which means that Sodomites are saying that it's not allowed to conduct homosexual acts in the temple of Moloch, but outside of it, it's acceptable. Another example. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind. In the Gay Bible, these words are replaced by morally weak.
This is an abomination before God, because there is no sacred ground for the homosexuals. There is nothing that they will not do to promote their agenda. There is no opposition that they will accept at any level. They must conquer every opponent. See, and the spirit that has produced this book, this false Bible, this gay theology. Gay theology is the heresy of the modern world.
For American homosexuals, this person, Scott Lively, is enemy number one.
Well, let me explain how this works. It's a 5-stage process of cultural conquest. 5 steps. It begins with a request for tolerance. Once the gays have achieved tolerance, and tolerance is just simply the right to be left alone, right? Then it's a demand for acceptance. And acceptance means an equal status. Then comes celebration, that everyone must accept homosexuality and promote it as a good, valuable thing. Then comes forced participation. Everyone must participate in gay culture. And then comes punishment of everyone who disagrees. Russia and the countries of the former Soviet Union are at the first stage, where there is a demand for tolerance. So most of the people in those countries, they don't think that there's a problem. But there is a problem, because it's just like a seed that gets planted in the ground. And the seed is the anti-discrimination policy. An anti-discrimination policy based on so-called sexual orientation.
The opposer of sodomites and pedophiles decided to show us the company which protects and promotes homosexual ideas in the whole world. Any criticism against the gay community in the United States is automatically considered a crime.
The average American is not in favor of homosexuality, but they're afraid of speaking out because the gays have so much power that they will cause harm to you. Here's our taxi driver.
You too? You too? Are you agreeing to that? I agree with anything.
He knows. He knows. It's if you speak up, they will find a way to punish you. Most people are vulnerable to some kind of intimidation, especially anyone who's in any position of influence or in the media spotlight. If they dare to say something against homosexuality, they will be punished. So most people just keep their mouth shut, right? And they just go along with it.
And these people?
Yeah, this is our taxi driver. I don't know him, but I said that. He nodded his head. He knows. It's everybody at every level.
I'm not suggesting. Are you afraid?
Yeah,
I'm not suggesting.
Human rights campaign is where we want to go.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah. You want to go to down? Thank you.
I want to get over there. So we're here now in front of the headquarters of the Human Rights Campaign, one of the most aggressive homosexual advocacy organizations in the world. This is the Human Rights Campaign envisions an America where lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people are ensured of their basic equal rights and to be open, honest, and safe at home, at work, and in the community. This is the LGBT. All over the world, there are serious breaches of human rights. People are being killed, they're being tortured, they're having to flee their homelands, cross borders, live in refugee camps. And this organization, instead of focusing on the true needs of people around the world,
They're trying to declare that homosexuality is a human right, and they're devoting vast amounts of money to promote this agenda around the world instead of addressing genuine human rights.
/ 21st century Germany, an ordinary marriage registry office.
Dear friends, welcome to Registry Office of Tempelhof, Schöneberg. We gathered here on this fine spring sunny day for a special occasion. You want to join the holy matrimony. I hope my colleagues informed you in detail on this possibility of change of a surname. You decided to take the surname Lukaszewski for your joint partnership. And I'm obliged to ask, have you changed your mind?
Behind you are the photographs of traditional families. Did it seem possible back then that gay marriages would be registering today?
I'm certain that they wouldn't have imagined it. I think that if I had asked my parents and they got married back then, they wouldn't have been able to imagine it. Today, same-sex marriages are an everyday thing.
Soon, the photographs of traditional weddings on this wall will be replaced by untraditional ones.
Noch mehr. Oh, danke. Und einmal.
The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations is located in London. During the war, this building was occupied by British intelligence, which was creating new methods of psychological war targeted not only against fascist Germany, but also the Soviet Union. Footage of the institute is strictly forbidden. None of the experts are allowed to talk about the activity in which the employees are engaged in. However, we were able to find a person who knows a lot about this institution. Daniel Stulin, author of the book Tavistock Institute.
Tavistock began as a clinic back in 1921. It became Tavistock Institute right after the Second World War, when a memorandum of understanding was signed between the Rockefeller family, Tavistock, and Brigadier General John Rawlings Lees, the founder of Tavistock Clinic. The idea behind Tavistock conspiracy, I guess you could call it, is literally to change the paradigm of modern society in all of its manifestations. In other words, literally change everything we understand and know about society.
Tavistock is the place which created and later imposed on the consciousness of European youth such cultural accents as free love, orgy, and civil marriage. With the help of CIA, Tavistock created the project called MK Ultra for the manipulation of people. It also can't be excluded that the psychological components of the so-called Ukrainian Revolution, chants, behavior models, slogans, were also created here.
When we're talking about projects created by the elite, these aren't things that are done on a 5-year basis we had in the Soviet Union, the famous 5-year plans. No, these people work on a 50 or 100-year period, planning their structures from one century to the next. And in order to create what we have today, you needed to start a long time ago, which is why, again, a lot of the projects which are manifesting itself today, such as homosexuality, for example, didn't begin, 5-10 years ago. They started right after the Second World War. You have man, woman, you have homosexuals, transsexuals, but then you're gonna have transhuman, you're gonna have post-human, you're gonna have man-machines, such as the Terminator. You're gonna have cyborgs. You're gonna have beings who are not totally human, as a result of synthetic biology. Because today, you can literally create a human being in a laboratory. You don't need man-woman relationship. You can create a being. It's at a point where you can have genes not of man and woman, but of 3 different beings. You can create a human being. And in the future, the idea of the elite is through the genetic manipulation to eliminate memory.
The Fertility Institute in Los Angeles. This is the first clinic which offered surrogacy to sodomites.
We've become world famous for being able to choose a boy or a girl. I have gay patients right now from Russia that we're speaking to. Yeah, I can show you the email about having baby, first baby. Yeah. Blue is a boy and pink is a girl. Okay, and you can see all the files.
And what's the green one?
Green is genetic disorders like Down syndrome, or they have a genetic problem. Okay, most of them are boys and girls. Yeah.
Whom they want more, girl or boy?
The male gays want boys and the female gays want girls. And here's some of the frozen tanks. Let me get them out. Can one of you guys unlock? I got a film crew from Moscow here. Can one of you guys just unlock one? Great, that's all I need. Thank you. Frozen embryos. Tanks are full.
Can you explain what exactly you have there?
Yeah, we have sperm from the man, frozen. We have eggs from the woman, frozen. Put them together, we get embryos.
It's already...
Здесь эмбрион заморожен, получается.
We take the embryos out, we warm them up, they come alive again, and then we give them to the mother. They're good for 100 years. There, they're taking the eggs, and taking the sperm, and putting them together to make the embryo. And then we grow them for 5 days. We do the test to see if it's a boy or girl, or there's any genetic diseases, and then we give it to the mother. So it's called a clean room. Class 1000 clean room. Very, very clean. We have to put on spacesuits to go inside.
Homosexual family will never see his mother.
And the babies will be okay not seeing the mother.
The US, San Francisco, 2014. Tens of thousands of sodomites gathered to demonstrate their lifestyle. Ordinary people are staring at the event with interest. Aren't you afraid that your child would want to become like them?
Colors and so on.
Oh, really? No. Yeah, we actually want to encourage him to see everything in the world. It's a world's offer, you know.
The local television specifically chose a transvestite to be the host of the show. He's one of theirs. These 2 women belong to a new sex tribe, a new family in a new world.
I am 38, 52.
Do you have children?
One child. I have one child. Yeah.
Together?
Yes.
How it is living without men?
Delightful. It's lovely. That's what I want.
How many homosexuals in America now?
Well, they say 10%, but probably many, many more.
10%?
Yeah.
Many more.
How
you got a child without a man? When they switch to...
Same way we raise child, everybody. We love her. We love her and provide for her, then everything's fine.
I mean, you needed man to get a child.
Oh, I see, biological. Yes. I have a friend who gave me some sperm in a cup, and that's how I made my baby.
And who is Papa and who is Mama?
What is your guess? Who do you think? Who is Mama?
You.
Yes.
And she?
Yes?
He and then she.
She. Yeah.
You are Papa and you are Papa and Mom.
Not Papa, but I am Mama.
Okay.
А как ваш ребенок говорит, к вам обращается мама и мама или мама и папа?
What tell your child?
Mama. Yeah, more so Mama. But she calls me Yu.
You.
That's what the baby calls me. That's her name.
Yeah. What do you think the child, if he grow up, will he not ask why I don't have a real Papa?
No, she has lots of other people in her life that have two mamas, and she has lots of great uncles and grandpa and opa.
It's a daughter.
Millions party at world's largest gay parade. The world's largest gay parade took place in Sao Paulo, Brazil a few days ago. The cold and wet weather didn't stop millions from coming out in support of the gay parade. At the 17th annual Gay Pride Parade, 17 groups set up floats while many participants came out dressed to impress. There are also live performances heating up the place. The annual parade strives for equal rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people.
A sociedade permite ser o que ela é através da nossa diversidade. A gente com muito pé na porta, a gente consegue dizer, oi, existimos, vocês querendo.
This year's parade theme is Never Go Back into the Closet. The theme is in response to the Conservative Party which opposes same-sex Justice stipulated that all government offices must legally marry same-sex couples throughout Brazil. Brazil's cultural minister showed up at a parade in support of this mandate.
É um momento que a comunidade gay vai para a rua e as pessoas simpatizantes vão lá e dizem nós estamos juntos com vocês, nós respeitamos vocês.
Brazil is the third country in Latin America to legalize same-sex marriage.
A massive pile of rock and rubble, rotating and rumbling its way towards Earth. What was once mere debris from the Big Bang is now destined to make a Big Bang of its own. Bursting through the Earth's atmosphere, this giant asteroid becomes an unstoppable force. Nearly 2 million times more powerful than the Soviet Emperor bomb, the largest, most powerful explosive device ever detonated. Its target, Los Angeles. The last thing anyone there sees is a flash, a fireball, and then
if this asteroid were as large as
child abuse, our society and our despicable media are celebrating with them. So I don't know if you've seen this video. It's going around of this woman named Erica Mason of Detroit, and she's giving her 14-year-old biological son, Corey Mason, a dose of estrogen because this 14-year-old son thinks he is a girl on the inside. So he's a transgender boy, right? And he thinks that he's a girl. Here's how ABC News headlined this dramatic act of brutality, this mother giving estrogen treatment to a biological boy. Quote, "See this transgender teen's emotional response to a life-changing event." Here's what ABC News actually wrote. Quote, "If Corey Mason's story is any proof, sometimes the biggest things really do come in the smallest packages. Last week, the transgender teen from Detroit received a life-changing gift inside a little pink and white box, her first dose of estrogen, and her emotional response, caught on camera by her mother, Erica Mason, has gone viral." Erica talked to ABC News about the hurdles faced by Corey, including exclusion and bullying at school. That forced Corey to be homeschooled, and then Corey's mother gave him hormone therapy to stop puberty. This is when he was 11 years old. So an 11-year-old boy was given hormone therapy to stop puberty. We can't wait until he's 18 because, you see, then puberty would have kicked in, he'll look like a man, so we have to actually stop a boy from developing into a man in order so that we can make sure that the boy develops into a woman. This is all biological nonsense, but this is how society now views this crap. Corey went back to public school looking more like a girl, and then Erica lectures all of us on proper parenting technique. Quote, "I want them to open their hearts and accept their children for who they are, not for what gender they do or do not identify with. Their hearts do not change because their outer appearance does. We all just want to be loved and accepted by others. That's all any transgender child wants, to be loved and accepted fully by their parents." Now, the idea behind this kind of garbage is that gender is completely a societal construct, and if you want to save your transgender child, all you have to do is tolerate and, of course, make sure that your kid has hormone therapy at 11 and transgender surgery at 15 or 16 years old. Here's what transgender kids actually need: proper therapy and treatment. But this is what happens when a society begins to accept the crap pseudoscience of transgenderism. Kids suffer, and they suffer at the hands of their parents. Corey is not going to be cured of maleness through prepubescent hormone treatments and therapy. Here's the stats, okay? Just 4.6% of Americans altogether attempt suicide. 41% of transgender people do. According to the Williams Institute at UCLA and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, quote, "Prevalence of suicide attempts is elevated among those who disclose to everyone that they are transgender or gender nonconforming. 50% of people who tell all their friends that they're transgender try to commit suicide at some point. 45% of transgender people who have undergone hormone therapy try suicide. So it turns out that only 41% of transgenders try suicide. That number goes up if you have hormone therapy. The same is true for people who undergo any form of surgery. Actually, suicide rates are the lowest among transgender people who don't want any form of treatment. And as for this ridiculous notion that it's because society is mean that transgender people commit suicide, this too is garbage. It's nonsense. The reason that transgender people try to commit suicide is because they suffer from a horrible mental illness.
mean, I think my parents do, but I don't, yeah, no.
Because you're 15, we do have a program until the age of 18. It's called Project Prevention. Basically, it helps young men and women get access to birth control and STD testing.
I was talking to my boyfriend the other day, and we were just like kind of fooling around, and he said he wants to start trying like some new stuff with sex. He mentioned that book, 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, so I think it's like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's similar to like bondage.
Okay.
That would be what it is. Again, with those, you just want to be safe. You want to have a safe word because there can be like tying up and gagging involved, and if something's hurting you and you can't communicate that, you could end up, injured in some way. So a lot of couples will have a safe word. Like if I say word, like if I say dog, then that means everything stops. Like, no matter, or anything you can think of. You just
Can you say like stop or like?
Well, those can kind of get like mixed up when you're having intercourse. So it's like for some people, stop might work for you guys, but for some people, some guys, they don't know. Does she really mean stop, or does she mean whatever? And also like an action or something. If you're gagged or something, you can't say that word. You need to be able to do something to let you know.
Oh, okay, an action or something. Okay.
Some whipping or some asphyxiation.
Okay.
Tying up. It can involve a lot of different things.
What's that for? Like, I mean, like the whipping. Like, what's that for?
It some men just get some type of pleasure out of it. Some women get pleasure out of it.
So if my boyfriend and I, if we wanted to like try that out, like where should we start with that? Like,
I think it would be helpful if you guys read the book, to be honest, or even did some internet research on it, and then kind of went through the different things that are in there, and it's like, are you comfortable with this? Are you not comfortable with this? Like they play with different toys. They have things like scare the hell out of me, but for some people they might like that.
What are those? I mean,
I think they're just things you put on.
Oh man.
Like, sounds like that.
Okay.
To me, but for someone, then
hey, that might work.
There's so many different fetishes out there. Like,
oh really?
Some guys like for women to urinate on them, or like what is it? Pooping.
Okay.
But there's some really weird stuff out there, which would be weird for some people. That's completely normal, and it can be really fun. Trying to figure out, oh, that was really fun, or I saw this on this, sex video, and it looked kind of cool. Let's try it.
Let's try it. Okay.
Have you guys ever gone to a sex shop together?
No. Okay. Well, what is that?
There's tons of sex shops around here.
Oh, really?
That's where they carry different outfits. Like if you want to roll for like a teacher or a nurse, they have outfits. They have whips, ties.
Okay. And you said there's some here in town?
Like, have you heard of them? It's just basically an adult play store, is what they call them.
Okay.
Talking to someone in there might be really helpful, actually.
Oh, they probably have ideas,
yeah. That would be a good place for you guys, I think, to go together and get educated together and be able to ask questions together and kind of get more comfortable with trying new things.
Yeah, and then do some research online, like maybe like watch porn or something.
Yeah, and you guys can do that together. You can do it on your own and get ideas and
watch it together.
But you can do it together. Some people like to do that and act it out. But be careful of viruses.
Oh, true. Viruses and all that.
Yeah, so just be careful with that.
If I were to look that up on my computer, could my parents see that?
Possibly. Do they get on your computer a lot? Or?
Well, okay, I use the family computer.
Okay, yeah. So they might be able to go in her history and look. So you might want to do it elsewhere.
Do it elsewhere, okay.
It depends though if they're, on your computer a lot. Or
the family computer, so probably wouldn't want to look anything up, I guess, there, but
if your phone has internet, you can use your
In conclusion, we have shown you all those horrible things going on in the world. We have shown you the wrath of God coming upon people. We ask of you, as an appeal, to accept the truths of Jesus Christ in the Gospels, in the Bible, the truths of the plan of salvation. Those truths are the character of Christ written out in books. And those truths which are the character of Christ comes in your heart as the Spirit of truth, at which God will justify you. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, according to Isaiah. And so God will justify you and make you righteous and prepare you for the end. So this is why we ask of you to accept Jesus Christ and to make sure you keep away from the congregations of these evil gatherings, these sinful gatherings where a lot of evil angels are and where we are sure that retribution is coming. Yes, my dear people, long live the Reformation. Yahweh Gadol.